I have a feeling that this one is going to be as hard for me to do as a mathematics major video because I know very little about physics. So if you do, please bear with me and feel free to elaborate and correct me in the comments. Hello everyone, my name is Reese and welcome to my channel. Please help my channel grow by liking, subscribing and commenting this video. Physics, the study of the many forms of energy. Those who study physics learn the intricacies of the world around us, allowing them to harness nature to do some amazing things. In other words, physicists give society cool things like lasers and catapults. And with that introduction, your sim is first going to take the freshman year, and here the first semester class is called Newtonian Physics 1, Measuring Falling Stuff. So, the class name is a reference to Isaac Newton and his famous work on gravity and classical mechanics, especially the story with the apple falling from a tree, which supposedly inspired him to think about gravity. So obviously the funny thing here is the contrast between Newtonian physics, which is a real scientific term for the classical laws of motion and gravity, and the measuring of falling stuff, which is a very simplistic way of describing what this is. So the joke, of course, here is that real science can be explained in very, very simplistic manners, making you think that, well, Isaac Newton and Newtonian physics, that's just falling stuff, right? When in reality, of course, it is just a tiny bit more than that. But the Newtonian joke continues with the second semester because here the class is called Newtonian Physics 2, Measuring Rolling Stuff. So of course the class name is again a reference to classical physics, and it is obviously continuing the joke from the first class, and it is most likely a playful nod to Galilei's early experiments, where he supposedly at least rolled balls down an inclined plane to study motion. So these experiments were foundational to what later became Newtonian mechanics, and by calling it measuring rolling stuff, the game is of course making fun of how complex scientific principles are often boiled down to the very simple language that we have here. As if physics is just watching things roll around. And it is of course a part of the game's satirical take on academia, where even serious subjects are given childlike, simplistic deadpan titles that makes the whole idea of college a bit ridiculous. But the first year has already passed, and now your sim has reached the second year, the sophomore year, and here the first semester class is called Lasers, Ruining Your Eyesight. So this class name is a twist on the serious study of optics and laser physics, and I think that it's a reference to real physics courses that cover electromagnetic radiation, light behavior, and laser applications. But of course, instead of presenting it with academic gravitas, it pokes fun at the danger warnings commonly associated with lasers. And all I can think of at the moment is Pink Floyd's logo, or their album cover, because to me, that is all there is to say about optic physics and light behavior. But in real life, lasers are used in everything from surgery to communication, but they always come with a stern safety warning, like do not look directly into the beam. And I guess The Sims here turns that dry caution into a course title, joking that the entire field of laser physics is basically about blinding yourself, or trying not to, rather. And even more simply, I think it's also a reference to how lasers were extremely popular in the beginning of the 2000s, at least where I come from Denmark, because I remember there being talk about how lasers could disrupt air traffic and, blind you. And we had strict precautions to not play around with lasers, even though there were quite a lot of laser toys back then for some reason. And if we take a look at the second semester class, it's called General Relativity, Pretending to Understand. So this class name is of course a nod to how notoriously difficult Einstein's theory of general relativity is, even for physicists, because general relativity deals with the nature of space, time, gravity, and the curvature of space-time, which is incredibly abstract and mathematically complex. And the joke lies in the fact that while many physics students are required to study it, very few people genuinely understand it in its full depth. And I completely understand that because wow. And here, The Sims leans into that intimidation factor and pokes fun at the idea that students, and maybe even professors, often just nod along, act confident, and pretend to understand while secretly feeling way overwhelmed. So to me, this joke is a matter of academic self-awareness. But your sim is really doing good now because he or she has reached their junior year, and here the first class is called Quantum Mechanics, Why You're Wrong. So this class name is a bit of satire aimed at the famously counterintuitive nature of quantum physics, which I know nothing about, but here goes. Because quantum mechanics often defies what is classically logic. It's about particles that can be in multiple states at once, and it's about observing something that can change its behavior and cause effects that doesn't always work the way we expect. So the title plays on the fact that quantum physics constantly proves our assumptions wrong, even those of the very smart people, which is not me here. So it reflects the experiments that many students and probably scientists also have when studying the topic, because you think you understand it, and then quantum mechanics says, well, no, you don't. And the class name maybe could also mock how physicists sometimes seem smug or cryptic when explaining it, as if the only correct response to a question about quantum theory is that you're just wrong. So the name is both maybe a reference to the deep weirdness of quantum mechanics and at the same time a jab at the academic gatekeeping and confusion that it often causes. But the second semester of the junior year has a class called Lab. Plasma is fun. So this class is a reference to real-world plasma physics, which studies the fourth state of matter, plasma, which is commonly found in things like lightning, neon signs, and fusion experiments, and stars. And in real-life academic settings, plasma labs involve high-voltage equipment, magnetic fields, and complex diagnostics, and they're known for being both dangerous and difficult. So to me, The Sims here flips that on its head with the overly cheerful, almost childlike phrase with "plasma is fun," as if working with charged particles at thousands of degrees is just another playful day at the science lab. Wee-hee! I can't help but think of the meme from The Simpsons with, like, Rolf Wiggum when he says, "I'm in danger."
I'm in danger!
So here the humor lies in the contrast between the dangerous, high-energy reality of plasma labs and the silly optimism of the title. But if your sim survived the plasma labs, he or she has reached the senior year, and here the first semester class is called Stella Astrophysics. Too far away to matter. So the class name is of course making fun at the field of stellar astrophysics, which studies the life cycles, the compositions, and behaviors of stars. Because in reality, it is a deeply important and complex area of astronomy, which is crucial for understanding the universe, including things like black holes and supernovas, and even the origins of the elements in our own bodies. But here in The Sims, this class mocks the seemingly pointless abstraction of studying distant stars when you're just trying to survive college or figure out how to pay your sim bills. So this is it. This is the last class of your Sims major in physics, and the class is called The Strange Charms of Quarks. And the name is a clever pun based on the real properties of quarks, which are fundamental particles in standard models of particle physics. Because apparently quarks comes in 6 flavors: up, down, strange, charm, top, and bottom. And this sounds ridiculous to me, but hopefully it doesn't to you. And the class name plays on two of those, the strange and the charm, while making it sound like a poetic or even like romantic phrase, like the strange charm, as is something that is oddly attractive. So the joke here is, of course, the double meaning of charm and strange, because I thought it would have been something from a Jane Austen novel, but well, it isn't. But now your sim has a major in physics. So let's take a look at the skills needed to get there, because they needed 5 mechanical skills, 1 charisma skills, 4 logic skills, 4 creativity skills, and 4 cleaning skills. And I think that the need for mechanical skills is a clever nod to the very hands-on and practical side of physics, especially in experimental and like classical fields, and probably also to the fact that physicians often work as engineers. And while physics is often seen as a deeply theoretical field, much of it involves building and maintaining and troubleshooting real-life equipment, like lab apparatus, electrical systems, vacuum chambers, or even just assembling experimental setups. And as far as I know, in university labs, physics students often find themselves turning screws and fixing wires or adjusting laser beams or wrangling with malfunctioning machines. So it's not all equations, sometimes it's duct tape and Allen wrenches. And then we have the need for charisma skills, or rather the lack of a need for charisma skills. And I think again that it is a cheeky reference to the stereotypical image of physicists, because they are often seen, at least like in popular culture, as introverted, socially awkward geniuses who are much more comfortable with equations than with people. And of course, in reality, communication skills are important. The idea here is that many physics students and professionals might be so focused on complex theories and like abstract concepts that they don't need to be charming or persuasive. And then we have the need for the logic skill, and I think that is a quite direct and fitting reference to the core foundation of physics itself, which are reasoning, problem solving, and critical thinking. Because physics is at its heart a discipline that requires sharp logical thinking to understand complex systems and to analyze data and apply mathematical principles to the real world. And in the real world, physics problems often require a step-by-step approach where you break down a situation into logical components, making deductions and drawing conclusions based on evidence. So whether you'll be solving equations, predicting outcomes, or designing experiments, logic is at the center of everything. And then we have the need for creativity. And I think it's both a playful reference and maybe also a somewhat ironic reference to the fact that while physics is often viewed as a strictly logical and mathematical field, creativity does play an important role in scientific discovery and problem solving. Because in reality, of course, many physicists and researchers need creativity to design experiments, to develop new theories, and to imagine solutions to complex problems. So I think that the creativity skills needed here are a reference to physicists having to think outside of the box when it comes to, for example, imagining concepts like string theory or black holes or the nature of the universe, because these concepts are such abstract ideas that you need at least a tiny bit of creativity to just visualize these concepts. And then we have the need for cleaning skills. And I think this is a reference to, again, the practical realities of working in a lab. Because while physics may seem, again, like an entirely intellectual pursuit, many physics students and professionals spend a lot of time in laboratories with equipment and chemicals and devices that require constant maintenance and cleanliness. So I think that the need for cleaning skills has to do with the cleanliness of handling data and also of handling equipment. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for other videos. Bye!